Niels, first of all, thank you so much for being here. So I want to ask you this because I've never had the pleasure of asking this question to you. Do you remember who you were back then? Are you present to that? Because before you joined, you said that you were always focused on like 10 different things, not really committing. And when I get too successful, I would get exhausted or overwhelmed. And then I would engage in escape behaviors and get stressed out, blowing the whole thing up. Do you remember that guy?
Yeah, of course, he shows up every now and then. I have to apologize. It has been an exhausting week and it's Friday night here in Europe. So if you wonder, this guy doesn't look like an energetic success story. That's why. And by the way, just to indicate one other thing, which is really fun, is that I started out in the intensive where somehow 40K of revenue dropped out of the sky. And I started September with the need to make about 40, 50K during the rest of this year because I had quit my day job. And I actually closed the 50K last Friday for the last month. So it's a bit full circle where things actually are working out nicely. It was not the question. The question was, do I remember myself? Yes, I have not had a lot to complain about success-wise in my life, but the way I felt about my life and also the trust I had in my own ability to move beyond what I was doing, being myself. Basically, the guy I was somebody who made a lot of money, but did not think he could make money by being himself. And I think that's a really important thing that's turned around, because somehow I had this conviction that if I really would be me, that nobody would pay me for anything. So I learned a lot of tricks and I'd become really good at playing a role of a successful person that even I sometimes believed in. But the big change is actually in that the guy who on the inside was actually quite nervous. That guy is still there every now and then, but it's like I have a couple of different radio stations I can tune into. This guy, or somebody who is basically much more relaxed, happy with who he is and how he lives his life. And it feels like the real me has become more of the default station, that if I wake up in the morning, the radio station is less and less tuned into this not so nice guy, and it becomes easier to tune into the radio station that I actually want to be. And the concept that I really learned, and Michael has been insistent on that, is not to wait for that to happen, but to claim it every day. Which has also been really helpful. Actually has been a tremendous lesson. I thought that somehow some big thing had to change, or that I would have to finish therapy, or that I would have to go through processing a lot of pain. Well, part of that has happened, but the main change really has been that I'm capable of claiming who I am. It's not who I want to be, it's claiming who I am and live my life from that place. And that really is a big difference.
That's huge. That's huge. And inside of that, if you will, you tell us, was your trauma what you thought it was going to be?
Well, I had no idea. I mean, we all have family issues. So I had in my youth a combination of early death of my mom and father drinking too much. And I thought that it would be around those things, which wasn't the case. And it's interesting that the one thing that Mia keeps telling all the time is feel for it. So rather than living your life from your head, just make sure you feel in your body what's going on. And for me, what was interesting is that feeling this core trauma, which at first sight looked totally inconsequential, that how I felt in that episode, and also how I felt before and how I can feel now, that feeling is always right. Even if I cannot make sense of it intellectually, it's great to just operate based on that. And that means the trauma was different from what I thought it would be, but it's the real one. I have no doubts about that. And it's also been cleared very much. So yeah, that's how.
Will you share with them what that was?
Yeah, it's actually me sitting in the living room in our house in Rotterdam, where I was born, in the playing pen. So really like a small toddler, crying for my mom, who's at the door answering a call from somebody who's delivering something. And basically my mom is not paying attention to me. And when I start yelling, she looks at me like, can't you just leave me alone for a moment? And so particularly this look of like, leave me alone, somehow gave me the impression that I'm not worthwhile, that I'm not worth paying attention to. And also because I was a really small toddler, falling down on my butt in the playing pen gave me the feeling that I'm weak. And it's actually that feeling, that conviction to be weak, that has been driving most of my behavior. So either feeling weak or proving my strength, which is the same thing, but a reaction. So that's been cleared. So the feeling of being weak has been resolved. What is great about that is that by feeling strong on the inside, I don't have the need to prove my strength on an everyday basis anymore, which saves me a lot of energy. I saw my dentist this morning, who lives in the same building where I am, and she said, Niels, you look super energetic. And I explained to her what I've been doing. And she said, well, it sounds like you're enjoying what you're doing, and that must make the difference. And it's interesting that that shows. I was really surprised that she said that.
And so now inside of that, like now healing this trauma, coming through this, what results? I know you just closed another 50,000. What are the results or the opportunities that you've created in doing the inner work that you've done? Like, I really acknowledge you did it. What has opened up, or like, what have you created as a result of doing that?
Well, I think there are three things that are super important. One is really on the inside. That the main thing that came out of the breakthrough session was a concept of me being a guide and a beacon for other people, and doing that from a place of light and ease. And those things are things that I feel now. So no matter what I do, no matter whether I make $0 or $20,000 in a day, I live my life from that feeling, which feels like I've already arrived, and the results that I achieve are great, but that's not the most important thing. I simply enjoy doing what I'm doing, and I'm feeling happy being who I am. For me, that's much more important than the money, to be honest. And then business-wise, what's super interesting is the fact that I can talk to people and just focus on their problem and find my way, where for me, another big lesson has been not to focus very much on the form of what I'm doing, but simply trying to find my way being who I am and looking for opportunities. The fact that I'm not pushing for sales, I'm not afraid to not have money or whatever, that means that I can drive business from a place of ease. So the second result really is that I have changed the ideas from the business that I started out doing at the beginning of the back end to where I am now, but the substance is very much there. And it started to pay off. I mean, I'm starting to make a lot of money. I have built new business contacts. I've also gotten rid of the stuff I don't want to do. So I have other people taking care of marketing and stuff that I'm less interested in. So those are big results. I mean, I'm really happy with that.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I think generally speaking that I'm more relaxed, and I used to pretend to be relaxed, and now I'm more really relaxed. Friendship and love relationships have become less focused on me and simply more accepting of what's there, simply being in the moment. I still get frustrated and angry, but I snap back earlier. I also apologize easier if I screw up. The joyful part of this journey for me has been to rediscover that I'm actually a feeling person, that I also love sensations simply, and that may sound weird, but I do breathing exercises every morning now where I simply feel my body and I feel the oxygen in my body, and I start my day feeling like a feeling person. And in the beginning, I remember that when I was in the intensive, that Michael gave me some feedback saying, okay, Niels, you're answering from your head now, really go to your body. He also is quite good at that. And that has become much more natural. So also in daily life situations, I feel that I react not just from my head anymore.
I want to ask a question because Niels was in the intensive 7-8 months ago. Would you have considered yourself an intellectual back then?
Well, I probably would have liked to. I think it was a bit, my coat rack. I to kind of hang my identity on that coat rack to say, hey, look, world, this is who I am. I'm a really smart guy.
Yeah.
Right.
So that probably would not have been my answer at that time. But I think that I considered being smart much more a part of my identity than I now realize it actually is.
That makes sense to me.
For me, what the starting point of all this is that previously I would live my life from a place of fear, of always being in need of more money, of more time, of more health. So I always thought that there was something wrong with my life. So anything I started in work was from a feeling place where I thought, okay, I really need to do this, and otherwise I'll be screwed. And that's the way I started any sales conversation. I could hide it, I could fake it. I was even good at faking it. But the difference now is that I'm talking to a lot of people at this moment, and I have every conversation from a place of trust where I think whether it's left or right, something will pop up and I'll be fine. So that means that when I am in a sales conversation and I could simply talk to people and say, okay, whether this is for you or not is something only you can judge. So I'm not going to make that call for you, but I simply want to explain what I can do and how this could work together. So I really focus on their needs, on how I could help. And then the call is theirs. But what is really interesting is that, and that's something that I hadn't expected, that my relationship with money has changed. So for instance, I had a follow-up assignment from a client who I've been working with for the past 5 years. They asked me for a proposal for something similar that I have been doing for the same way, let's say for 25K for the past 4 years. And I raised my rates by 20%. I added 2 days of extra work because I simply think I can improve the quality through that. And they didn't even discuss it. And that's some weird shit for me. So that's a big change. So 3 things. 1, I don't operate from a place of anxiety. 2, I really talk to my clients and discuss what I could do for them. And 3, I don't hold back making my quote. So I don't do discounts. I simply add what I think is useful. And if they want it different, we can discuss that. But these 3 elements create a different result. The part that did very much resonate with me is that I thought, okay, if I can lose my core trauma and get rid of this constant fear for 5K, I don't have to think about that twice. So that's what I did. And I didn't give that much thought. So for me, the big decision was for the year program, which was a bit of a hurdle financially, where I had to think twice and think, okay, do I want this? Looking on it in hindsight, what's really interesting is that sometimes I get lazy also in the program now, and then I really think, okay, but I'm spending all this money, so I need to continue focusing. So actually it helps me to keep on track. That may sound weird, but that does the trick. And then at the end, I also simply did the math. You say, I thought, okay, if I need to spend this money to go through a year-long program, what can I achieve with that? What would I like to achieve with that? What's the risk if I don't? And then I thought, okay, even the risk is okay, even if it wouldn't work out. I'm 56 years old. I thought, okay, there's a couple of things I really want to do. I either do them now or I need to shut up for the rest of my life. So that was also a little bit my consideration, that I thought, okay, if I look at the financial risk involved, yes, it's a serious investment, but it also feels like, well, a good, proper risk analysis, where I think, okay, it makes sense, and it still does. So yeah, that's a little bit how I went through that decision-making process. What is super interesting in this process is that I went out and said, basically, I can be very transparent about numbers. I want to move from about 200K to about 400K. At this moment, I'm fine. I'm on my way. As I said, the money isn't really interesting. But what is really interesting is that after about half a year, I'm now discussing possibilities for my business where we're not talking about 400K. We're talking about moving to about 1 million in the next 2-3 years. So and I'm only doing that because I've embraced the possibility that may be something that actually is possible for me. And that's the big game changer. In all honesty, I'm not there yet, but I feel that it's possible in my life to make 1 million or 2 million or 5 million a year. And I did not think that was possible for me when I started out. And that's a big change. That's
Awesome.
So I'm not there yet, but
so
hey,
much.
my own limitations are really kind of falling apart, and that's really good. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Niels, I want to acknowledge you again. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for just being you, like being vulnerable, authentic, and real. It's so refreshing to see this in the world. And I just really want to honor you for the inner work you've done. Like, you've done the work, and it's beautiful. So thank you so much for being a freaking badass.
Well, thank you for having me. Perhaps one final remark. What I have really enjoyed in working with Mia and Michael is that they are 2 super different people who each really add their own flavor. So Mia is totally badass in seeing through you, in being foul-mouthed if she needs to be, and really kind of also business-wise being super, super sharp on the business. Yeah. And Michael is a gentle psychic, if you will, who really can see what's going on inside you in completely different ways, but it's really they're the yin and yang of business. So I really wanted to mention that because that for me is, I've never seen it like that before, let's put it that way. So with that, I leave you all to it and wish you a great week.
Thank you, Niels. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Much love.